Welcome to Stop Wasting Your Wine, a wine review podcast where we waste our wine so you don't have to. On this episode, we review
a red wine from France.
Welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for joining us again. I am Joel, and I am joined by two of the most creative people in my life, Colin and Aaron. How you guys doing today? Doing
good. Feeling creative. Funny you'd say that. This is actually my creative outlet, this podcast here. I do
This podcast?
This podcast right here. This is where I flow all my creative
We're juices. On a podcast?
We are on a podcast, hence the microphone.
I thought we were just like journaling.
How do the listeners call in and be a part of the show? Like, do we give a number so they can call in and give us their opinions?
Live lines are heating up.
Yeah. What's your creative outlet?
Please tell us on this episode.
I love it. Yeah, I guess this is a pretty creative thing that we do here, huh?
It's a necessary thing. I realized about myself a while ago. Like, I need creative outlets, and it's one of those things where I try to do so many things. I'm not like super good at anything, but like, tinker on the piano or try to draw something every now and then. Really enjoyed making our stickers.
Hey, that's creativity right there.
They're they're super. Look how creative that is.
Cool.
Dry AF because it's, bone dry. It's a skeleton and it's dry. But these and the podcasts are very creative, like need these things. Otherwise, life just gets kind of mundane.
Helps keep the brain in shape too. I feel like I love part of being creative is like problem solving, and I love that part of the process, just being able to figure things out and how things are going to fit together. If you're editing a video, the different pieces of that to make it entertaining, it's a lot of fun.
How do I make Aaron sound less stupid?
It's hard to do. It takes a lot of time.
I am thinking about your brain, to be clear. It's a strategic effort on my part to create speed bumps that you have to work your way over, keeping you nimble.
To allow you to be more creative.
That's right.
You're welcome.
I would call that synergy.
Oh, nice.
That is, wow.
Great word.
$1 million word right there for Mr. Colin. I love it. I think you're onto something though too, because I know, and actually, it was before we started doing this too, I must say, but like, you guys ever have a time where it's like almost in like Groundhog's Day, where it's like you go to work, you come home, you make dinner, feed the kid, put the kid down, watch TV, you go to bed, you wake up and you do the same damn thing over and over again.
Yeah, man. It's as you get older, it's a little it gets. Thanks for bringing that up, Joel. It's not what I lay in bed thinking about every day. Thank you for that.
Well, that's what I'm saying though, is this, this along with other things, it's a nice reminder to remember to keep cool creative things, that creative outlet that we're talking about in our days.
Absolutely.
I was trying to make it an optimistic thing, not a sad thing.
No, sorry, I did that. Sorry, it's just my old age. I apologize. I'm gonna reel it back in, and I agree 100%. Like, because this has been a really cool way on top of the creative aspect of doing the podcast, but like getting to hang out with you guys like once a week. If we were just like, hey, let's hang out once a week on Zoom, as everyone realized in 2020 and 2021, that gets pretty old. When you don't have an express purpose of why you're meeting. So this has been a really cool way to stay connected and keep things fresh.
I agree.
Me too.
Oh, nice moment.
That was nice. Oh my God.
That was sweet.
Warming.
It's wholesome.
To start off.
It was really wholesome. Great way to start the show.
That was. So speaking of the show, listen, we made a promise to the listener that we were going to stay out of France for the month of March. Well, guess what? It's officially April, listener. So we're going right back to France. Aaron, like you said at the top of this episode, we're just waiting to get back in. You mentioned we were drinking a red wine from France. Can you tell us a little bit more about this wine we're trying?
I'll try my darndest.
Okay.
We're once again drinking a wine from a place that I have never heard of, and that is exciting. So this is from the producer Pré Vaujour from Chinon. It's a 2022 Cabernet Franc from the region of Loire. And as I mentioned, the Loire, which I have been practicing daily. It's an ABV of about 13%. And we got this guy from Total Wine at about $23.
I joke about, promising we were going to leave France and coming back. I have been excited to come back to France because there's just, like we've said before, so much to explore. But the reason that I chose this wine really also actually ties back to our conversation last week with Anthony Dale, where we tried his Cab Franc and we all really, really enjoyed it. And
It was so good.
It occurred to me,
So good.
It was so good. It was so good. And it occurred to me we hadn't reviewed a Cab Franc or really talked about it a whole heck of a lot in these episodes up until now. So I thought, hey, let's go ahead. Let's circle back while we're all on that Cab Franc, excitement train. Let's give one a go.
Actually do a Cab Franc from Franc.
Oh yeah, there
you
we
go.
go. Well done.
An actual Franc and Franc, or it doesn't count.
I'm glad you picked this wine because I love Cab Franc, and I regret not having one on until now because it's such a fun grape. I really
should regret it.
I do. I regret it. It's one of my greatest life regrets is not drinking more Cab Franc on this show.
Well, you shared with us last
That's
week that it was one of your favorites, and I didn't know that. And I got a little Post-it note, and I put down a note that said Cab Franc equals one of Colin's favorites.
Ooh, someone's thinking about birthday gifts.
That is so thoughtful, Joel.
So hopefully I picked a good one, and you enjoy the heck out of it today, Colin, and you, Aaron, too. Of course, I want you both to enjoy it. But
Thank
I hope
you.
we all enjoy it. Before we get into it and see if we found a winner, Colin, I would like to learn something today. Can you help out with that?
Yeah, I hope so.
Don't do it.
I'm gonna do it.
This is the only thing you will learn.
All right. So this evening, since we haven't had a Cab Franc on here, and we've definitely not had anything from Chinon, I thought I'd talk a little bit about Chinon and Cab Franc. This bottle, if you guys noticed, and this is true for most of Europe, but doesn't say Cab Franc anywhere. Even on the back, it says red wine. So if you didn't know that if a bottle has Chinon on it, it is a bottle of Cab Franc, you would have no idea what this is. I just thought that, I want to point that out because it's definitely a wine.
I can tell by Aaron's face that he's just noticing that too, right? Are you just noticing that it doesn't say Cab Franc on there?
Yeah, well, I noticed it earlier when I was, pulling up the language, and I just thought it was weird, and I just assumed it was a producer choice. But you're telling me, because Chinon is a region, or is an appellation, you're telling me the only wine they produce in the entire appellation is Cab Franc?
Not the only wine, but it's most of the wine.
Enough so that if it just says Chinon, the assumption is Cab Franc.
That's correct. And that's true for a lot of Europe, actually. In Europe, it'll just have the region on it or the appellation. So if you don't know what they sell in that region or appellation, you're square out of luck. Like even the Côte d'Aron just has Côte d'Aron on it. If you didn't
That's
know,
what I was thinking.
That's going to be a Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvedre blend. It's just Côte d'Aron.
So you would say a Chinon?
Yes. Or you can, of course, you could say a Cab Franc from Chinon, but it's kind of implied based on the appellation that's what you're drinking.
But you could go, like, if you went into a nicer wine store or something, you could say, like, hey, I'm looking for a Chinon.
Yes. Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Well, this is me logging information and trying to get smarter.
Sure. No, absolutely. And they would know exactly what you're talking about. So Cab Franc's the king of Chinon with 84% of all the plantings in the region. Cab Franc. They do have some other blending grapes, like they actually use Cabernet Sauvignon in sometimes. Mostly you get 100% Cab Franc, but that's not always the case. But besides Cab Franc, they do also make a little bit of Chenin Blanc in Chinon, which is another grape we haven't tried, which we absolutely should because it's fantastic. Cab Franc does so well in Chinon because of the climate. It has some of the cooling influences from the Atlantic Ocean, but it also has some of the more continental climate from being kind of inland in the Loire Valley. So it has, the grapes are able to get, that's right. The grapes are able to get ripe, but not overly ripe. So a lot of the times, and what you can expect out of Chinon is going to be a lighter style of Cab Franc. You typically see a light to medium-bodied wine out of Chinon. You're usually going to have high acidity with moderately low tannin. It's not going to be too tannic like some of its other Bordeaux blending grape friends. And as far as flavor notes are concerned, you can expect a lot of red fruit, a lot of berries a lot of the time. And because it doesn't necessarily get as ripe as in Chinon as it might in some of the other regions, you might see some green bell pepper and some of those more green notes, some herbal notes, and then the regional Chinon and its Cab Franc is known for its minerality. So you can expect to see some of that in there as well. So that's kind of just a little bit about the region and the grape. It'll be interesting to see if this one kind of maps to those flavors.
So I'm also, as my very limited Europe map develops in my brain, I'm now wondering about like the shape of the Loire Valley and like thinking about the number of regions, because I imagine now we've now identified a number of regions that are all in the Loire Valley. So the Loire Valley is clearly the larger area of land. So now I'm like, shoot, like how cool would it be to travel into these different regions through the Loire Valley to try, like that just sounds like a wildly good time.
And it runs into the Atlantic Ocean. So on one side, you have very cool maritime climate. And on the other side, you have more of a warmer continental climate. So the wines you find along the river, there is actually the Loire River, I believe, are going to be considerably varied.
I think 2025, Stop Wasting Your Wine, Loire Valley Tour.
I would love that.
It would definitely alter the background of our videos slightly.
What if we just do those backgrounds to make it look like we're here? We're actually in these beautiful, beautiful mountains. We're like, we don't want to mess the people up too much. We want to keep it consistent.
Aren't you all in Chinon? Yeah, but I needed my bookshelf. Otherwise, it wasn't going too low.
Absolutely. No,
we just all bring one item from our background. I will bring like Holden's rocket ship thing that he made me.
That would be funny.
I would bring my entire wine rack.
Perfect.
Just Colin's wine rack on a stand. That would be really funny.
That would be hilarious. All right. Well, awesome stuff, man. Thank you once again for introducing us to a cool new region, Colin, and giving us some background. So again, super excited to give this a go and see what we got going on. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get into it.
Let's do it.
Tastes like wine.
So we've all opened it up, and I think we're getting our first smells here. So I will go ahead and pass it to Mr. Colin to kick us off.
Oh, look at that.
It smells wonderfully Cab Franc-y. Like it really has all of the notes that I love about a Cab Franc. It's quite fruity smelling, but it also has a lovely floral aspect to it, which I really enjoy. There's definitely some nice red fruits. I'm getting maybe a little bit of like raspberry, maybe a little red cherry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, I don't know, Aaron, you have anything to add there?
No, not much to add there. I mean, I agree with like the very floral aspect of it. And, whenever we get into like these dark red, my brain always goes to like the plum, dark berry kind of realm. But at this point, I don't know if that's just what I'm trained to think and say, or if that's the actual smell at this point. But yeah, I agree with you. It's like that very florally, very fruit forward smell.
Yeah. The first thing that smacked me in the face was the cherry, but not even like a dark deep cherry. It's almost more like a red. This doesn't make much sense, but almost like a fresh cherry, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, like a tart red cherry.
Yeah, for sure. And also, are you guys getting a lot of leather? Like that's the second thing to me. It's those two things. It's the cherry and then so much like leather.
Yeah, I don't know if that's leather. Maybe there is.
What am I calling leather here?
There is something in there, but I'm getting some herbs, maybe some French herbs.
It's something that it's almost on the verge of feeling burny in my nose a little bit. Not that leather is burny, but like it's right on that line of something super, I don't know, not even earthy, but like
it's not
material.
That like medicinal alcohol kind of smell that we've had in the past with some of the other darker reds. It's not that.
The burny is the alcohol though. It is kind of coming off. I don't disagree that you can kind of smell the alcohol in here. It stings the back of my nose a little bit, and that's you can only really attribute that to alcohol.
I will say this too about the aroma of this wine. And maybe this is like, Colin, you're saying this is very Cab Franc-y. If you are not a big red wine drinker and you stick your nose in this wine, it is going to cause some hesitance if red wine is not your jam, because it does have that like really deep, like red wine aromatic smell to it. It's not a light smell.
I just figured out what it is, by the way. I honestly have never had this happen, but it just freaking clicked in my head.
I love that.
I know what I'm thinking. It's pepper. It's pepper with like maybe some of that alcohol on top of it that was confusing me a little bit, but it's a lot of peppery.
I would say it's very French. I'll say that. It's not just fruit. There's a lot of other smells going on here. You get that floral note, you get that herbal note, but you still do get quite a bit of that nice bright red fruit. It's definitely a pretty interesting sniff, and it does smell fantastically Cab Franc-y. So I hope this is one that if it tastes like it smells, this could be a winner.
Well, let's check it out.
I looked at the back of the bottle, sometimes a little bit of notes, and I remember Anthony made a joke last week about the smell of black currant, and people being like, "Oh, I smell black currant," and he's like, "No one knows what that smells like. Like, what is that?" And it's one of the notes on the back of the bottle, and so I wonder if some of these mystery smells are that, because I just thought that was very funny that was named on the bottle after Anthony said that last week.
Could be. We don't have anything to associate that to.
Because I don't know what that is.
Yeah. All right. So we've all had a couple of sips here.
Colin's wheels are turning.
I'm going to keep it in the same order. Colin, do you need a second to think about this, or do you want to go?
No, it's fine. I don't taste much, especially on the sip. You get a lot more of the herbal note on the finish, but you almost don't taste any of the fruit. Like, it's very strange that it smells so fruity and it doesn't taste fruity at all. It's a very, like, I'm trying to think of another wine where the palate and the nose were so mismatched. In like
the Merlot that almost
negative.
Killed us.
No, but that kind of smelled weird, right? This one smelled great. It just doesn't taste like anything. Like the finish is actually the best part of this wine because it's the only place I'm really getting any flavor. But like just taking a sip, it's light bodied, which is, kind of what you expect.
We did do one earlier. I'm trying to remember what it was. We did one that was like a real fruit bomb to the face when we smelled it, and then we drank it and it was really thin. I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, so that's kind of I'm gonna have to take another sip because I'm searching, but I can't. I don't know.
I mean,
Aaron,
to Colin's point, like it's pretty thin tasting. I am getting like a little bit of like the plum licorice kind of esque flavor that we've identified in like Grez before, but like there's nothing really exceptionally sticking out to me. I do have the most knowledgeable palate of all of us, so I'm sure I'll identify some kind of lost taste here. But yeah, no, I can't put my finger on anything. Tastes like wine.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, and Joel started to jump in, but I just poured another little, that helped a lot.
You're good.
Like, it actually tasted like something this time. So I don't know if because it was sitting out in the glass or what happened, but when you get a new sip from the bottle, you do get a lot more of that fruit characteristic.
Well, to me, yeah, I feel like there's a lot there at the very beginning of the sip. And it's a lot of what I'm getting is that really young kind of fruit that we were talking about, very fresh, very light. And then just nothing in the middle.
Yep.
And then a nice aftertaste.
Yep.
Like that's the experience that I'm having here.
It kind of punches you in the face and then runs away.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like what's that candy?
Sour Patch Kids.
Sour Patch Kids.
Oh,
yeah, exactly. But not in a taste profile, but just in the fact that there's a lot going on and then it's gone.
Colin, it feels like a good time for a structure review real quick. It's been a long time since we've like run through the pieces, and I actually think this is probably a good one to name like where exactly it's feeling funny, because we're talking a lot of like anecdotally about like it starts here and the finish is good, but the middle, let's just roll through it. Like I think one of the things that's lacking is the actual body of the wine, right? Like it's actually like really thin,
super thin.
So the body is thin, but the tannins is not terrible, and that's kind of weird, right? Like there is like this nice kind of mouthfeel to it at the end. It doesn't feel, the acidity isn't bad, and I don't think the balance is wrong with the alcohol. Like I'm not really getting hit in the face with the alcohol or anything at all. I'm forgetting one. What am I forgetting?
The dryness. It's dry.
Sweetness. Yeah.
It's dry. It's dry. It's moderately acidic. It has solid tannins, but the body is thin. And that's really the only thing that seems to be throwing it off to me.
It's funny. We're talking about what we're tasting too. I want to talk about what we're not tasting here, which is kind of, you had alluded to it last week too, Colin. One of your favorite things about the Cab Franc is that they're usually a little bit funky and a little bit earthy. And there's really not much of that going on here, I don't think.
No, you're right. Again, it smells more Cab Franc-y than it tastes, but I think that's because there's just not a lot of taste. The hard part I'm having is it smells so nice and tastes just so flat and uninteresting that I'm really like, it kind of breaks my heart a little bit because smelling it, I was really excited, and then tasting it, I was far, far less excited.
Well, before we get too far down this road, I think we need to officially move into review time.
Let's do it.
Anybody have anything else they want to call out about this wine before we do that? Okay.
I mean, if we're just
So
naming
let's-
things we don't taste, I can name a million things. Human flesh, not an ounce of
And
it
you went
in
straight
there.
creepy, huh?
That was weird. In my head, I was like, I was like, oh, there's no Cheeto. And you went straight for human flesh.
Yeah, I went donuts.
Human
I
not
went
there.
donuts. Aaron went
Flesh.
human flesh.
Wow. We got to talk
I'm just
after
trying
this,
to
my
make
guy.
sure-
Yeah, FBI, if you're listening, you might want to check his basement.
All right. Well, with all that being said, a lot of good discussion here, guys. And I feel like this might get a little spicy here. But let's go ahead and move into our review.
Yeah, but did they like it? It's time for the review.
I feel like this review might get a little spicier than the wine is. So let's see what's happening
Zing.
here. Heyo, that's a wine diss. All right.
I'm gonna cut that and make it a thing.
Drop it in, make it a button on your
Yeah,
little
absolutely.
pad.
Whoa, wine diss. All right. So let's get into it. Who wants to go first? I'm going to ask for volunteers. And if nobody volunteers, I'm going to volunteer you to go first.
Ooh, volunteer. Powerful. I'll go first. I don't care.
All in. Oh. All in. Oh, okay.
Colin,
Refresh
kicks
me
off.
on.
No. Let me go first.
Okay. Okay.
Ooh.
All right. Fine. Aaron, you go first.
He wants it.
I don't want to.
Let him
Okay,
cook.
here's why. I want to name that over the past few episodes, I've had a little bit of a crisis of like opinion. As a couple times I've went one way and you two have gone another way, and I've been concerned about that a little bit, and then I've changed my opinion a little bit. So I just want to stamp my opinion off the bat. I don't want
Plant
to
your flag.
I don't want to say I'm copying Colin. I have
I
opinions
understand.
too. I am not offended by this wine, but I am not excited by it, and I don't think the flavor is anything special. I'm not trying to sound like a high school bully right now, which it sounds kind of mean, but I think the wine is like okay, and I think if you are someone who really critiques wine, you would have a lot of problems with it, and I think if you're someone that doesn't know anything about wine, you might not like it. You know, there's some wines that we've talked about that are like cheap and like people drink and they buy and whatever. Like this is a wine that I think if you were someone who didn't have an opinion on wine, just like bought wine casually, you might just not like it because it just doesn't have a very interesting taste. And on the flip side of that, people who like wine a lot aren't going to like it because it's just not where it should be. I would say this is a closet wine in the sense that if someone gave this to me or I already have it, I would drink it. I'm not dumping it down the drain. Like, I'm not taking sips of it and being like, oh, this is gross and like I don't like it. But I wouldn't go out and buy this again. So it's a wine that I would put in my closet and I would have as a backup wine, but it's not a wine I'm going out and buying.
Colin.
Yeah, so I keep thinking to myself, I wish the wine was as good as the finish, because even now I'm enjoying the aftertaste, which is so frustrating because the wine itself is so lackluster and so uninteresting. It's not, I'm on the fence, honestly, between a closet wine and a drain wine for a couple of reasons. One, for $22, it's not worth that at all. It's like not even close. Spending $22 on this is a shame, but it's also not disgusting. Right? It's passable as a wine. It's just so expensive. So with that said, I don't find any value in this. But again, it's not terribly offensive. So I guess I'll just put it at the very, very back of the closet.
You know what kills me about this is if someone had come to me and said, hey, try this wine. I wanted to design something that was going to be real easy drinking, and maybe I want to inspire you to drink this while you're by the pool, something like that. I would probably enjoy this slightly more than enjoying this as a Cab Franc. If that makes any sense, because the way this thing drinks, how thin it is, how light it is. I mean, this to me, I would categorize in my mental portfolio much closer to a heavier rosé or something like that. Like, to me,
Not the
feeling-wise,
deep red wine that we're holding in our hands for the people who don't see this video. Like,
hey,
is
I mean,
red wine.
looks are deceiving in this situation because this thing drinks like it's a wannabe porch pounder, in my opinion. But at the end of the day,
Wow, what an insult.
it's supposed to be a Cab Franc, man. It's supposed to be a Cab Franc. And I know, Cab Francs can be on the lighter side of things too, but they need to have something. They need to have something going on. And I don't know, the middle of this, it's not doing it. But I'm not putting this down the drain. It is going in my closet because at the same time,
You don't
like
have
Carl
any
saying,
room in your
it's
closet, man.
not a
You
thing.
don't
I
have any
put one
room in
thing
your
down the
closet.
drain. I've got plenty of room in the closet. It's ever expanding. But like we're all saying, I'm not offended by it. It's just it doesn't seem to me like a Cab Franc. There are little things that I like about it. So I'm not angry. I'm probably not buying this again, but I'll keep it in the back of the closet. That's where it's going. Whew. Okay, so pretty interesting stuff, but we're all fairly aligned here. Little question on what side of the line of drain and closet that we had, but for the most part, I think we're all pretty aligned. But I think this one, guys, does deserve a conversation around: is this a waste of your wine?
Yeah, this is not an obvious one.
Reminder. Yeah, agreed.
Or maybe it is an obvious one. Just in the a lot of times we come to an agreement. We say, and obviously,
Yes.
with what we said, this is not a waste of your wine. I think there's a conversation to be had on the other side.
That's why I pumped the brakes here on this one, because I don't want to make any assumptions here. I don't feel safe making an assumption because we've had a lot of good conversation around this one. So, reminder, y'all, this is the Pré Vaujour Chinon Cab Franc 2022 from the Loire Valley, 13% ABV, about $23 for this bottle of wine. I'll go back to you, Aaron, to kick us off. Is this a waste of your wine?
No hesitation. This is a waste of your wine. We've knocked out so many excellent wines on this show, sub $20, that we have just loved, and there are going to be great wines that knock our socks off at 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Like, there's going to be good wines in every category. And in each of those categories, like, you got to be at that level. And at $23, this is not a $23 wine. It's just not. It's a waste of your wine. And I want to take this moment to shout out Anthony Dale from Fatherhood Wines from last week, because a lot of times there is an assumption around established, older, old world. This is... And I got to say, I can't find anything about this winery online, to be honest with you. I don't know if this is like a very old French winery or a newer French winery, but it is not as good as the Fatherhood Wine Cabernet Franc. And I want to name that and say that Anthony, as a local small business wine producer operating out of DC, knocked his Cab Franc out of the park. And this one is overpriced and a waste of your wine.
Colin.
Yeah, I mean, considering the fact I almost drained it, I don't have too much of a choice but to call it a waste. There's no value, like Aaron said, in this. It's just for the price. You can definitely find much better wine. I wouldn't buy it again. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. So yeah, waste of your wine.
Yep. It's a consensus here. I would agree. Waste of your wine. And I do want to point out, like you said, if you didn't say it, I was going to say it, Aaron. This is not just a dollars thing, because I look forward to experimenting in some higher price points too, and just seeing what we kind of uncover and find. And I think we'll get some really cool things. Maybe expand our perception too a little bit, which will be really cool as we get into those. But I think we've seen enough to know that at this price point, you can already be doing some really cool stuff, and just not seeing it on this one. So totally agree. Waste of your wine.
We have learned that you can make good wines at most price points. Obviously, we know there are going to be wines out there at high price points that are just at a quality level that should be celebrated and earn those price points. Comparatively to other wines at this price point, this is not doing justice for what can be found in this range.
Yeah, or just for Chinon in general. Like, I was excited to have this because I've had some fantastic wine from Chinon before, and this doesn't even live up to that.
Bummer. I was going to say that I think this is my first wine that I brought to the show that we decided was a waste, but I think that's totally not true. I think I've had a few. I definitely still have the record for most wines that I brought to the show that are in the wine fridge,
That is true.
collectively
That
of
is
all
true.
of us. So there you have it, listener. Officially a waste of your wine, but I hope this wasn't a waste of your listening time here. I know I had some fun, and you gotta taste some, some that you might consider a waste to know what is not a waste as well. So also listen. We're just three crazy guys talking about wine here. If you have had this wine and you disagree, you think this is a fantastic wine, hey, let us know. We value your opinion too. So go out there, let us know. And Aaron, can you tell folks how they get in contact with us to say hey?
Yeah, 100%. Like, first and foremost, like, Instagram is kind of our number one source of contact right now. You can find us at Stop Wasting Your Wine. Send us a message. I try to be very responsive. If you have any questions, any recommendations, any feedback on any of our episodes, we want to hear it. We want to get better. And if you are, a wine producer, or you are someone involved in the wine community and you'd like to come on to our show, we are branching into the interview world and would love to chat with folks about having more voices in our community. You can also email us at stopwastingyourwine@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Colin's Nimble and Hardy community there. We have a TikTok, which is just slightly more exciting versions of the same exact videos we post on Instagram.
Why can't I get the slightly more exciting videos on Instagram?
It's just the way it works, man. You got to accept it.
The Instagrams are the classics.
Okay.
The TikToks are like the new age remakes. They're
The
just
director's
they
cut.
got their own spin to them, but they're not. It's not good, the originals. And of course, stopwastingyourwine.com, where we have all updated reviews of all of the wines that we talk about on this show. You can listen to our show directly through the website if you prefer, and hopefully someday there'll be merch.
Someday. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed. We definitely enjoyed having you. And we'll see you next week for another great episode of Stop Wasting Your Wine. And remember, stop wasting your wine.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.